Welcome to the Land Investing Business Secret Podcast, where each short episode we talk about the strategies, experiences, and the tools to help you launch, grow, and scale your land business. Learn how to find freedom within your own business, find out ways to build consistency in your processes, and hear how other everyday land investors are winning so you can get to the next step closer to building your dream life through your land business. And I'm your host of the Land Investing Business Secrets Podcast by Pebble, Jesse Kwong. Hey, how's it going? It's Jesse here of the Land Investing Business Secrets Podcast. I've got an old friend here, Alicia. She is going to come on here to talk to us about a different marketing channel. We've talked to other people about this before, cold calling. And so I'm really excited to have her on the show to share her experience with some of her services and some of the learning lessons about cold calling. I do want you to keep in mind, although we are talking about another marketing channel, this isn't the next big thing. This isn't going to solve all your problems. And I really want to preface that to make sure you understand what you get yourself into when you're cold calling. Stay consistent with what you're doing, but don't be afraid to explore new territory. So I'm going to have Alicia here talk about some of the new territory for a lot of you guys that maybe you want to explore about cold calling. Anyways, enjoy this episode here with Alicia. All right. This woman here needs no introduction. Everybody knows her in the land space. Alicia here. A lot of her know her as AJ. And it's so funny because like people, I mentioned the last time, people refer to you as AJ. I'm like, who's AJ? Like, oh, supercharged offers. And I've always called you by your full name. And I know with a lot of people that you work with, you go by your abbreviation. So
I've just made myself an acronym, Jesse. It's I do have the kind of first name, and I'm glad you got it right, but the kind of first name that not many people get right. And there probably are some people new to the land space that don't know me. So if you're new to land, welcome, guys. Been doing land for 8 or 9 years now, 8 years now.
Awesome.
Yeah, somewhere around there. And also have supercharged offers, which we offer done for you marketing services for people in the land space. So super excited to chat to you again, Jesse, and let's give everyone an update.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, a little bit of a side story here. We both finally got to meet, and we were just joking around how we were in the same place, in the same space, and we didn't even know who was really staying at our place out there for an event that we both attended. But it was so great to finally meet you in person. And it's crazy to think we're both not from the States. We're both from different parts of the world. And we finally got to meet up. But anyways, I wanted to get you on here to talk a little bit about what's going on with the market and also what's going on with cold calling. I know cold calling has really picked up recently and for good reason too. And I think I'm just going to leave it open-ended here. What are you seeing right now, Alicia? And I know you're always keeping an eye and you're very, very close with what's going on, especially on the marketing side of the world. So give us a little bit of an update here.
Yeah, I'd love to, Jesse. So we really launched into cold calling full on about 3 months ago now. We'd always been dabbling with cold calling in our customers for about a year or so, but we really needed to bring it in-house. And a couple of reasons, like your question is kind of double-barreled, right? What's going on with marketing and what about cold calling? So the what's going on with marketing element, we started to see it's a tough market right now. We're filming this in July 2024, folks. It's a seller's market. It's pretty tough, but there are deals out there to be done. But we noticed that direct mail responses were starting to have a little bit of a decline. And so when that happens and you're a marketing company, you do need to go time out. What do we need to pivot here? What do we need to adjust to? And so, as I mentioned, we were already doing some cold calling, but we were doing it with another provider. And we wanted to do some things differently that provider couldn't do. And so hence we thought, you know what? Let's bring this in-house. Let's build up our own cold calling team that can just focus on supercharged offers customers. And let's offer a couple of elements that are not only number one, really important in cold calling, but number two, make a difference with how you do cold calling. So that's where we're at.
Well, let's touch upon that. How would somebody who may want to start dabbling in cold calling themselves, they're going to probably do a lower volume and they're going to, run that themselves and experiment a little bit. What would you say is probably the best way to kind of just get that started? And, what should one actually say when they're actually cold calling?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, what I would say to anyone out there, if you're planning on doing cold calling yourself, think again. It is not an easy job. So if you're wanting to be a real estate investor and get leads and get deals, doing cold calling by yourself is not your best use of time or your best use of money. You're going to get hung up on 200 times a day. It is not easy. So I want people to keep that in perspective, that those people out there that are doing cold calling, it's a tough job. But when you get someone that knows how to do it properly, it does go into leads and into deals. So I guess the first question you need to ask yourself is, am I good at cold calling? Because if you haven't done it before, maybe don't start there. And number two, if I want to try cold calling, am I prepared for some of the ups and downs that cold calling is going to bring you, right? Because there's a lot. The third thing I want to add to that, Jesse, is if you're not great with that, well, let us do the cold calling for you, because we've got starter packages that are really cost effective that just give you what I call proof of concept. Proof of concept is if you're new to vacant land and you just want to get some leads in the door so you can assess if this is a business that you want to do or not, just do cold calling with us for a month. Let's get some leads in your pipeline. Let's get you up and running. And then you can assess, is this the right business for me? Are these leads in areas that I want to do deals in? If yes, how do I then start to do more? Because sometimes it's just, people get into this vacant land business. They're all excited. They've done some education. They're ready to go. But getting started in marketing and getting started with leads really overwhelms a lot of people, Jesse. So get started with us. We can do it for you.
So how does a cold call, again, if somebody wanted to maybe explore, or maybe they're going to also have a team member who has experience with that, what should that initial call sound like? I mean, how do you guys go about it over at what you guys do over there at Supercharge
Yeah.
Rocket?
Yeah, before I talk about what the initial call sounds like, let's talk about the setup of what you need to do cold calling, because I think that's really important. And this kind of highlights some of the things that we've brought in house. So, number one, everything starts with data. You've got to make sure you've got really good, high quality, up to date data for the areas that you're going to be doing deals in. Number two, skip tracing. When you're doing skip tracing, you want to make sure you're using a provider that's going to get you at a minimum an 85% hit rate, and therefore a really good option of success rate for those numbers. And you want to make sure that they're getting multiple numbers for the lead. Number three, you then want to make sure that you are compliant. And this is one thing that our previous company wasn't able to do, and one thing that we're really leaning into. So once you've skip traced, you then need to run that data through a do not call and a litigators list to remove anybody that is on there, because the last thing you want to do, guys, is go against the TCPA or FCC regulations, because it can bite you in the bum big time. So we want to make sure we're doing that. And then it's about once you've done that, then it's about getting your script and looking at the conversation. So essentially then, if we think about the role of a cold caller, Jesse, and this is, again, I want people to remember here, you're dealing with humans, not robots. And humans on the side of the person doing the cold calling, but also the property owners are human, right? So you've got to make sure that your scripting with cold calling is done in a way that you're getting enough information to either qualify or disqualify the lead, and then push that lead into your sales system to then follow up with comps, offers, things like that. So the scripting, should we go into that and talk about what a conversation should sound like? Yeah. Obviously, an experienced cold caller is someone that really understands the psychology behind sales. And that is that you've got to be the one in control of the call and not let the person go off on a tangent. Otherwise, your cold call will take 20 minutes, half an hour per call. So a decent cold call should go for somewhere between, say, 3 to 5 minutes. You want to build some rapport with the seller, ask them if now's a good time to talk, get them talking about their property, asking open-ended questions like, are you the one on the title, or is there anyone else we should consider? Tell me more about the property. How long have you had it? What were your plans for the property? Tell me a little bit more in relation to, does it have road access? Are there utilities close by or hooked up onto the property? And tell me, what do you think the next best use for the property is? Is it buildable? Is it not? What are some of the things we might want to consider there? And overarching all of that is obviously finding out, are they open to selling? And if they're not open to selling per se, are they open to having a conversation about their property and exploring options about either holding or selling? Because the thing I want to get in front of people at the moment is, any lead is a good lead. You want to get them into your ecosystem and start nurturing them. because when they are ready to sell, hopefully they'll think of you. So that whole cold call, the job of a cold caller is to do that qualification, not to negotiate. You don't want your cold callers negotiating on your behalf, because that's going to end up, you can imagine, Jesse, right? As soon as numbers start getting talked about, we're going to end up down in this rabbit hole conversation with the seller that you don't want your cold caller to do. So the cold caller is going to qualify, get the lead into your ecosystem where you can now start nurturing that lead, talking to the lead in more detail about their property, and running your comps and making offers.
Now, when we're talking about qualifying, and thanks for breaking that all down there. That was very, very helpful. When we're qualifying, or when your team is qualifying, what are you? I mean, you listed them. Can you go over them again? And items here. What are we actually looking to qualify for? And
Yeah.
is it quite normal on that first call to start qualifying? Do you find that the case that you guys have set up there?
Yep, absolutely. What we're really looking for on that first call, in essence, a qualified lead, if you look at it at a basic level, a qualified lead is someone who's talking about their property, they're open to exploring options with their property, be that selling or maybe seller financing, whatever that might be. They're being friendly on the call, they're being very communicative. That's someone that you want to get into your lead system ASAP. Because what I say is, we're going to work on getting those leads in. Your job as the business owner and the one doing the land business itself, right? Your job is to make sure that you nurture and convert that lead through to a deal. Now, whether that takes one offer, three offers, 1 month, 6 months, that's up to you as to how much of a good negotiator and follow-up person you are. And I certainly know Pebble helps with that, right? So our cold caller job is to qualify, make sure that they are open to talk about their property, that they're communicative about their property. If they're on a call with someone that is shutting them down, isn't interested, you're not going to get that lead pushed through. But ultimately, what you want to do then is, once the cold calling campaign's wrapped up, anyone who hasn't answered, because not everybody picks up the phone. And the other thing too is, we're focusing our cold calls on time, not dials. So we're going to keep dialing that list nonstop for a long period of time. But anyone who doesn't pick up, that's the ones that you can push your direct mail through to. So if we think about it like a typical sales funnel, Jesse, top of funnel, data, cold calling. Some customers are doing SMSing, then cold calling. Then for those that don't respond, direct mail. And for those that are in your ecosystem, keeping your offer strategy really clear and really concise.
Perfect. You cut off for a split second, but you mentioned that for those people that you've cold called, you're going to cold call them again, and if they really don't pick up a second time, the rest of those you'll hit them with direct mailing. Is that correct?
Actually, not even a second time. So that's probably where I cut out. So as an example, let's just say you're doing a proof of concept caller with us, Jesse. That is looking at a list of about 4,000 property owners. For a whole month, we're going to call that list nonstop. So over the space of a month, you're going to be sitting somewhere between 12 to 16,000 dials. Okay, I want people to remember that, because a lot of cold call companies out there, they charge you per dial, not time. We're really focused on time, because our experience was showing us that the longer you work a list, the more likelihood you're going to have of someone picking up. Now, does that mean that people are going to be bombarded with 10 calls a day? No. Does it mean over the space of that month that a lot of people in your list might be called 4, 5, 6 times? Yes. But that's good. We want that.
Got you. Now, I'm wondering, you guys have worked with another organization with cold calling prior, and now you brought it in-house. What were some of the learning lessons that you realized coming into running it yourself now?
Yeah, some learning lessons is really about how to make cold calling more effective and compliant. So doing that do not call on litigator scrub, that was super important for us. And because we couldn't find a company out there that would be willing to do it for us at a reasonable price, because it is pretty expensive to actually scrub for do not call on litigators list. So we needed to make sure that that was there. And that's really because as an organization, we want to act with integrity around this stuff as well. The second thing is warm transfers. So you know how I said before, Jesse, that if we've got a lead on the line, that they're talkative, they're happy, they're open to discussing their property, that's the time that you want to start your conversation with them. Because what we were noticing with our previous cold call company is leads would come in, but then our customers were struggling to get them back on the phone, and they would end up ghosting you. The lead would disappear if you didn't get back to them quick enough, all that stuff happened. So what my team now does is if they've got a good lead on the line, they're going to call you straight away and say, and first of all, they're going to let the property owner know, look, hey, I really love talking about your property today. I'm going to introduce you to our owner, Jesse. He's going to take the call from here. Would that be okay? And if they say yes, they're going to call you and say, Jesse, I've got AJ on the line. She's open to talk about her property. She's actually really curious about what you do. Here's her APN. She's in Tennessee. I'm going to do an intro now. And they're going to get the caller on the line and say, Jesse, AJ, you guys are now connected. Jesse, over to you. That warm transfer makes a huge difference. Number one, it gives a really good impression to the property owner because their experience so far is pretty seamless, right? Number two, it gives you the chance to introduce yourself, talk about what you guys do, but more than anything, get to know the property owner. Get them talking at the next level. So tell me, how long have you owned the property for? Okay, you've had it in the family for 20 years. Wow. Has anyone ever thought about building on it? If not, why? Get really curious. Start to ask them some questions and then expectation set. So that warm transfer doesn't mean that you need to give them an offer, but it does mean that you need to be clear on the expectation of what's going to happen next. So how you wrap up that call is, hey, Jesse, it's been awesome talking to you today. I am going to go and look at your property in a lot more detail. Give me 24 hours. I want to run some numbers. I want to do some checking on a few things. Can I call you back tomorrow at this time on this number? Would that be okay?
I love that. I love
And
that.
now they're in your ecosystem.
So we call that warm transfer, where the
Warm
cold
transfer.
calling agent will then dial. Very, very cool. I want to talk a little bit about then, let's say, you don't get a chance to actually do a warm transfer. They're somewhat interested. There's somewhat of a warm lead.
Yep.
What would what does the landscape of follow up would that look like? What would you suggest there?
Yeah, easy. So a couple of things what we're doing is we're recording all the calls. So let's just say that you're not available for a warm transfer. The caller will wrap up the call. They'll then send you the link with the call recording, and you get to then listen to that call before you call the person back. And that's super important as well. Number one, gives you a chance to give feedback to the cold calling team because we're dealing with people here, guys. Number two, though, it allows you to listen to the sentiment of the property owner. How did they respond? What was their tonality? What did you notice about that? And then when you pick up the phone and call them back, you can pick up where they left off. Hey, I listened to the call that you did with Sam. Sam asked you a couple of questions. I've got that. So let me pick up from where Sam left off. Again, that's going to mean that the property owner feels like they've been listened to as well, right?
So I hope you're really enjoying this episode so far with Alicia. She sort of gets tactical here and explains some of the processes as they go through with their service for cold calling. Now, at the end of the day here, although you're getting cold calls in, you're getting leads in, you're going to need a process to really start managing some of these deals. How do you start your renegotiation? How do you start your due diligence? And then how do you pass that off your plate? Because ultimately, we came into the space of land to get back some time. And that's really what I go through, the framework to really get you on track to think about building a sustainable business and B, a scalable business. Now, you may want to keep the business operation small. That's fine. And that's totally cool. A lot of us do run our business like that. You want to do just a couple deals a month. But at the end of the day, we don't want to be slaving over hours and hours just to get a couple deals done. So I have a framework which I call the hack framework, HACK, which is all about getting you on track to scaling. We talk about teams and how to build teams, how do we hire, to automations and follow-ups, to building out our playbooks. It's a fancy word for SOPs, which really are the instruction manuals for running your business, because at the end of the day, you want to slot somebody in to help you with some of the processes. But how do we create those repeatable processes without taking up too much time? There is a methodology to this. I've read tons of books on building processes and having systems in place, and I've gotten a chance to actually bring some of them on the podcast before, but I've now reduced it into this framework, which I call the hack framework. It is a 3-day challenge with me. We go through on really pushing the limits of your understanding of running a business, and really getting in place the frameworks to scale a business. So if you're interested, I run this every single month. You see it on my hat here. It is the Dirt Hacker Challenge. Head over to dirthackerchallenge.com. I do this every month, so you can sign up for the next one. Not only that, I'm going to send you a bunch of free stuff. Here I'm reaching out, including a book like this, The Real Land Talk book. It's 200 pages full of goodies. I've had AJ in here. All the past podcasts, I've reduced all of their conversations into gems and takeaway. I also get you another book by my good friend Travis King here. When you sign up, the Land Investors Playbook, I will send that to you for free. I'm going to send you the Kindle version though, so it doesn't get too heavy, and a bunch of other stuff here, including workbooks and whatnot. So that is all included. If you head over to dirthackerchallenge.com, if you pay for the shipping as well, that's all you need. It's a free challenge. I'll pay for the shipping. I'll get you all of that stuff, and then I'll see you for the next upcoming challenge to really get your business on track to actually scale. Anyways, enjoy this rest of this episode here with Alicia. So what happens, let's say, if they don't pick up? Would you suggest now, let's move to the alternative, shoot them a text, shoot them an email, shoot them a physical piece of mail? Is that where we sort of move over to different channels then?
Yep, all of the above. What I would do is the first two first. So send them a text, hey, this is AJ. I'm calling you from this number. You spoke with Sam yesterday about the property, just trying to call you back. Or leave a voicemail, do a follow-up. If you love the property and they've ghosted you, maybe that's the time to go, look, I really love this property, and here's what some of our customers have done. They've pulled together an offer. They've put a little handwritten note on it, just like this. Hey, it's AJ here. You spoke with Sam and my team. I've been trying to reach you. I really need to talk to you about your property. I've had a look. Here's my first offer. Can you call me back so we can negotiate?
I love that. So you're actually diving right into the offer as sort of a last resort type of thing, would you say?
Yeah, just trying to get their attention again, right?
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So we understand a little bit about the follow-up side of things. Any other sort of takeaways in terms of, again, cold calling and you guys sort of exploring that? I know you mentioned compliance there. What are we, if we're not compliant, what are we looking at? Are we looking to get in some big doo-doo here, or
yeah,
it's cold calling. I mean,
it's cold calling, right? So cold calling is still a great way of doing business, just like direct mail, but you still have to be compliant. So if you call someone on a do not call list, or someone who's on a litigator list, be prepared for some backlash on that, because they can report you. And in New York, for example, the fines are up to $13,000 just for calling someone that's on a do not call list. You can get into some deep doo-doo. So we want to make sure that we keep you compliant.
Sure. Okay. Got you. Now, I'm curious, you work with a lot of Pebble people as well. How are you guys going about getting those deals into Pebble? Is that coming through? Are the cold callers entering in the form and that just coming into their inbox, and then they're managing and following up from within Pebble?
Yep. We love working with Pebble because all of our websites, our cold calls, everything integrates really, really easily. So you know how you guys have your little intake email? We simply take that, we give it to the cold call team, and now any lead that comes through goes straight into the Pebble inbox.
Oh, awesome. Okay. So then from there, they can manage it. They can run their follow-up, their automated follow-up. Cool. Very, very cool.
Yep. And second to that, if I can also add, even before we start cold calling, for our Pebble customers, we've got the data. You guys have been wonderful in teaching us how to upload data into your system. So my team will actually upload all the data. So now when the lead comes in, all you need to do is look up that lead. All the property information's already in there, and now you can start your process.
Okay, so as soon as, if there was a warm transfer, they would just then quickly type in the name or whatever, APN, even APN or name, that should be able to pull it up. They have that in front of them. Okay, awesome. Yeah, and that's one of the big things we typically stress is make sure you have that data in front of you and you're not sort of scrambling between Excel sheets and trying to pull that up.
We don't want that. We don't want that. So even when we're mailing for customers who are using Pebble, you and I know that we switch off the mail in Pebble because we're uploading multiple lists at a time and we're doing the mail for them. So again, we're going into Pebble and getting that Pebble ID so that each deal still has that Pebble ID on it. So that's consistent throughout your CRM.
Got you. Curious now, moving back to the cold calling session and on sort of on a technical thing, what are you sort of seeing in terms of time wise? How long do your agents or your cold callers typically spend on that initial call? And I'm assuming they don't do the follow up. Obviously, the investor actually does the follow up afterwards. But how long are they typically spending on that call?
Yeah, couple of things there, and I will talk about follow up because that's an interesting one, right? And here's another thing that we wanted to do different. Let's say the cold calling team calls someone and they're interested in talking about their property, but now's not a great time to chat. We get that with people all the time, right? Hey, I'm just running into an appointment, but yeah, I do want to talk to you. The cold call team will call them back.
Oh, okay. Okay. Got you. Got you.
And let's just say that they're on a call with someone and they're asking about access or title. And the person's like, look, you've called me. The property's in a trust. I'm actually not the trustee, but let me get the trustee on the line and give you their details and give them a call about the property. The cold call team will note that down and call them back. So they're going to do all the follow-ups to get that initial qualification done, which sometimes means they're calling the lead 2 or 3 times to either get to the right person or have the right conversation. The second thing on that is, let's just say that they've made a call and no one's picked up. If you get a missed call, and let's just say you get a missed call from the same number twice, 3 times, do you get a bit curious and call that number back, Jesse? Yep. So that will go direct back to the person that made the call. So they're also answering inbound calls from people that have missed. Now that number will come up in the system and it will say, hey, this is Jesse Kwong calling. So then they simply answer, hey, Jesse, thanks so much. We obviously missed you the other day. Thanks for calling us back. And then they start the conversation. So in essence, there's often a little bit of back and forward happening between the caller and the property owner, not all the time, before they get that lead into your system. And as I mentioned earlier, Jesse, a typical call, about 3 to 5 minutes.
Okay. Right. 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 Um, Here's a random thought, and I've heard this sort of discussed before and asked is, now I don't know where your team is based off, but do you think accents make or create any sort of an issue on that side of things?
Yeah,
I
great
had a
question.
Yeah, I had a fellow Ray on here a long time ago. He's from China. He has a Chinese
Okay.
accent, and
Yeah.
he told me that it didn't affect anything, and he's still able to do. And it was just one of those things. I'm sure some people are thinking in the back of the mind, but what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and here's the thing, right? I've got an accent. I got an Aussie
Right,
accent.
right. We all have an accent.
Yeah. So I
Oh,
guess
buddy.
I'm going to break this down into 2 things. First of all, do accents make a difference? On the grand scheme of things, no. And all of our team, they do have to be a 4 out of 5 in English. Our team's actually based in Egypt. And I know like RJ Sharma's got a really big team based in Egypt. And Egypt is a really great place to do business. A lot of people are college educated, they're sales trained, they're professional. Their accents, they do still have a slight accent, but it's not bad. I can understand them no problems. And most of the time, I'm getting really good feedback that they're really clear. If we get someone that does have a stronger accent, we'll just keep coaching them and working through that with them. Again, we're dealing with a human. But on the whole, it's very rare that we get feedback about accents. And here's what I'll do as the second element to this. If we could have an American team with 15 people in it that we do, and if people are willing to pay American rates, great. I'll do that all day long, Jesse. How about you? But here's what I'm going to be honest with. A lot of customers aren't prepared to pay that. You're hiring a professional cold caller in the States, you're going to be paying 2, 3 times as much as what you would for overseas.
Sure, sure, sure.
Yeah.
Well, you also obviously have insight into mailing. You mentioned that you're sort of seeing a little bit of a stagnation with the mailing side of things. Are you seeing that you have to do more volume with calling versus mailing overall? Do you have to do higher numbers? Where do you see things with that?
Yeah, this whole business doing vacant land, as you know, Jesse, it's a numbers game, guys. You got to keep marketing to get leads in, and it's all about numbers and it's all about volume. Obviously, the more calls that we make, the more mail that we send, the more leads that come in. But mail response rates in the current market, and I don't know if it's due to the election year or whatever as well, but people are in a bit of a holding pattern to some degree. Are there still deals out there? Yes. I mean, you and I were just at a conference coming up a week and a half ago. Loads of people were talking about deals they're doing. So there are still deals out there, but now you've got to double down. And I often say this when markets go through cycles, because that's what we're in. We're in a cycle. When everyone else zigs, you got to zag. So do the opposite of what everyone else is doing. Double down on cold calling, change your direct mail piece. Go with something a little bit different to capture more attention. And that stuff does make a difference. But the reason why we also brought cold calling in-house is we can see the lead flow a lot quicker. So once we get someone set up, they're getting leads in 24 hours. So that instantaneous response rate is much faster than what it is in direct mail. And so that's why we're now doing the bulk of that. The other thing we're doing is strategizing with people, like that funnel I said before. So once you've gone through cold calling, then we switch to direct mail. But we do two things there. Number one, we want to assess the areas. So out of everything that we cold called, what are some of the areas working well? Where did you get some really good leads that you're looking at properties and going, oh yeah, I want to do more in that area or that area? Because then let's do the direct mail and double down into those areas. I think gone are the days where direct mail, you can just spray and pray and get it out there. You do need to be more strategic. And when you and I were on that panel the other week, we spoke about that, right? Market message match. You've got to segment your data, really understand what you're mailing, who that's going to, and what's your message in there.
Alicia, I think you bring up a really good point. Coming to a time where things, I don't want to use the word competitive, but the market is changing here, and experimenting is huge here. I'm glad you mentioned earlier you've got sort of a plan that some people can sort of come in and try things out and get data on that and see if that works for what you're doing. Same with mailing, experimenting on your messaging, experimenting on different things. It's so important. Gone are the days where this is how you can do it. It'll work. And trust me, it can't be further from the truth. And unfortunately, I do see a lot of people getting weeded out of the business. Now, I'm not saying that cold calling is the magic pill, but I definitely think it's worth experimenting and trying that as well. And when you sort of have some data, you can start digging a little bit deeper. You can work with people like Alicia here over at Supercharged Offers. Again, I don't need to make an introduction here, but I can do it myself, and I don't even need really to ask you. If you wanted to engage with AJ here, Supercharged Offers is a great place to start with you guys. I think that's probably where you probably are going to engage with a lot of people. So if you guys are interested in working with Alicia, superchargedoffers.com is where you're going to get a chance to do that. And again, I really encourage, I don't know, I think that just really hit hard for me because I sit on a lot of these calls and it sometimes, I've been on, and we've talked about this before. I've been on calls where people have cried to me and literally, I've spent so much money. I was told this, and they're not getting the kind of results they need. And this is a business at the end of the day. And one of the beautiful things about being in a business is you can try different things. And
I love that, Jesse. Yeah. And let's just kind of reframe on that a little bit, because this is the unfortunate thing. And you and I see this from both angles, right? We see a lot of the educators out there, and you and I personally know a lot of them. Some of them are awesome. They're not all made the same. I still see people giving these big promises that, kind of paint the picture that you're going to be a millionaire by next month. And that's just so far from the truth. These businesses take time, they take effort, they take investment. And I want people to think about this like any business. Any business, you're going to have a ramp up phase. You're going to have a phase where you're doing trial and error. You're going to have a phase that you're testing what works for your market versus a different market. That is all normal. What I don't want people to do is get a month in and go, this isn't working, because it takes time. And I think in the current market, 2021, you would be in your first month and go, yeah, this is working, because it was a buyer's market. People were literally signing contracts then and there on the same day. We're now at 2024, market has shifted. Will it go back to a buyer's market at some stage? Yes, because all real estate goes in cycles. So what I would say to people listening is hold tight. Stick with what works. Don't go for the bright, shiny syndrome. Stick with the stuff that you can get consistent, that you can get measures on and track as you go. And yeah, you'll be okay.
I mean, like I know we're talking about cold calling here, but even with mailing, if it's working or if you want to give that a shot, I mean, that's why Alicia is still doing mailing with supercharged offers. It's not like it's not working. So I think you mentioned it there is stick with it, get consistent with it. And I ultimately, I feel like that's sort of a big message here that I'm getting from you. And also don't be afraid to experiment. So Alicia, it's been a pleasure to have you on. You're one of those people who are so deep in their field, and I love it when you talk and um, watching you talk. I mean, even just some of the other stuff that we did at the event, it was great. Talking about networking and whatnot. And Alicia is a great person to work with. So, nonetheless, Alicia, thanks for coming on the show here. I'd love
Thank
to have you
you for
back
having
on
me,
again.
Jesse.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely love talking with you as well. And, I know that we both come from a place that we really want to help people with their businesses, and that's what makes us click. So, yeah, thank you so much for having me on, and let me talk about all this all stuff cold calling.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks again. Cheers. Before you stop this episode or hit the next episode, I want to personally thank you for listening to this episode of the Land Investing Business Secrets podcast by Pebble. If you found this helpful, we greatly appreciate any awesome reviews and ratings on whichever platform you are listening to this on. And if you have 2 minutes and wanted to step it up even more and help others, feel free to share this in other Facebook groups or pages or any communities, giving others a heads up of the Land Investing Business Secrets podcast or the specific episode that may help them on their land investing journey. Once again, thanks so much for listening, and catch you on our next episode.